Serial Experiments Lain, an anime series that I've always wanted to sit down and watch for a very long time. I've seen it constantly mentioned in threads, to forums, to across the internet when I used to search for anime to watch next. It was a series that always got mentioned, but for some reason I never sat down to actually watch it. Since Chibi recently decided to send me the DVD of the series, I decided, you know what, there's no reason to really try to hold back and not watch anymore. So, my interest peaked, and I decided to finally start the series and see it for myself. Serial Experiments Lain is not a series that is really so conclusive. For instance, it's left up to the viewer to really interpret what it really meant. And through some research I did on my own after I finished the series just a couple hours ago, I come to find out that the author, the writer of this series that was made in 1998, yeah, it's that old of a series, was made to be ambiguous, and also left up to the viewers to decide what they really think the ending really meant. And so, if you're looking for a series that truly has, like, tie the bow on top of a series that really answers everything, this series might not be what you're looking for. But if you're looking for something that could be deep in some areas, along with a lot of philosophical questions, to making you think about human existence, to God, religion, and stuff like that, you might enjoy this series. See, when I first sat down and watched this series, this is my first time ever watching. This is my final thoughts of the series after researching on, the author's thoughts of the series. The series is very confusing, and it can make any normal anime watcher scratch their head and think, what did I just watch? That would be the first thought of almost anyone when they sat down to actually watch this series. The only way I feel like this series could truly be understood, and you can get a very, very good thought about what this series is truly about, I would feel like you would have to watch this series about 3 or 4 times, but sadly enough, I don't at the moment have the time to do that. So, I'm giving you all my rough ideas and thoughts of what I think this series is really trying to do. And so, maybe one day I will sit down and watch it again and then give my true other interpretations of this series once I watch it again. But for now, this is what I truly think about Serial Experiments Lain. The main series, I guess you could say, since it's set, it was made in 1998, it's quite an old series. So, coming into the series, if you're used to newer animation and art style, like, what we normally get throughout the years, this series is going to be rather jarring for some, because the art and animation is not the same of what we're normally used to, but that doesn't make Serial Experiments Lain bad. I personally believe that with the series having this type of dated animation and art, it actually thrives upon something that is rather eerie and I haven't seen in quite a long time when it comes to anime. See, I'm used to the newer versions of anime because I haven't actually sat down and watched an old anime for quite a while. And since I've gotten so accustomed to the newer age of anime art and animation and CGI, I've forgotten how eerie older art was back in the 1990s and early 2000s. See, I feel like Serial Experiments Lain would not have benefited as much if it would have had newer animation compared to what it had in the past, because with the artwork it had in that age, it really fits the atmosphere. Out of all the series I've seen in the past couple months to probably a couple years, I feel like Lain has the most solid atmosphere I have seen. See, when it comes to the sound effects of the series, it really thrives upon the environments of the art. The art is very cyberpunkish in some aspects, along with very trippy, and you feel like you're on an acid trip in some moments while you're watching the series. And I feel like the way the animation looks and the art, it really complements the way the atmosphere was portrayed in that time. And so there is some areas I do have to admit that looks rather dated, especially when it comes to some usages of the train scene, but when it comes to the overall effect of what the art animation stands for, it really complements the series to a very good extent. Now, the music and soundtrack of Lain, I like the opening and I like the ending song. They're very good songs and good music, but when it came to the most part of the OST of Lain, personally, it wasn't the best. I think the main things that make the sounds of Lain shine the most, I think, was the sound effects of the technology to the static electricity sounds and stuff like that. When it came to the sound effects, I personally would say the best I've heard in recent memory, besides Kar no Kyokai I've heard just recently. So, yeah, Serial Experiments Lain's sound effects on point when it came to everything. So getting into the story, now I've done a complete presentation of the music, to the art, to the, opening and ending. Let's talk about the presentation of the story. So the story follows a girl named Lain, and she's going to school, and at first when you get into the series, you're introduced to her character, and you're trying to wonder, okay, so what is going on here? Like, there's a lot of different jumbled up mess of plot, story, ideology, philosophical questions going on throughout the entire series, and you're left wondering, okay, so what is really going on with this story? You come to find out that this girl, Lain, she's kind of experiencing an issue to where she's having, like, a identity crisis. She's having this split personality to where she realizes there is one of her selves inside of this internet called the Wire, and also herself in the physical realm, and she's confusing of which person is her, and she's having like this identity crisis. And as the series goes on, it really mainly focuses on Lain as a character and what she's trying to overcome and what she's really trying to do. As it slowly and slowly progresses throughout the different layers, since the title of the episodes are called Layers, you kind of find out a little bit more about how the world works, until the final 2 episodes kind of represent what the series was really trying to make you think. See, it makes you wonder something really quick when you watch the series. Lain could be interpreted as an AI, or an internet god of the Wired, and she was created by some being. And at the end of the day, with my interpretation, it's not really well known who really did create Lain. It's not cold-cut and explained. But you can kind of guess and interpret that she is some form of different being besides a human. And there's many places throughout the entirety of the story as it progresses that makes you think different perspectives of what she truly is. There's some points in the episodes around episode 8 and 9 to where you could possibly believe that some form of aliens made Lain, because you see how a spaceship of an alien landed, and then the technology of what was going on might have created the Wire and Lain. And that's one interpretation you can pull out of the series. Or there's another where you could find out maybe the father of Lain, that was trying to be her foster father, might have been some form of creator to her, since he was a person that was into computers and technology. And then you can assume that she's just some form of god that's always existed but was never known. That's another way to look at the series, because that's one of the main themes, actually, of Lain. If God created man, what created God? Did man create God? That's one of the philosophical questions in Lain. And if God wasn't believed in, like if God had no worshippers, no one believed in him, would he continue to exist? That is a question that is mentioned, and it makes you wonder a lot of things, because at the end of the series, a similar situation happens to Lain. She erases her existence from the world. She erases her physical existence from the world, and even her wired self that was on the internet from the world. And she is isolated and lonely, and that's one of the key themes of Lain, loneliness. And Lain has to kind of overcome this, and in the act of trying to overcome this at the end of the series, she realizes that she's became more of an observer. She's watching over the world and seeing how it progresses and where it goes from the point onward. And memory that she erased can be more of a, I guess, collective memory that can't be forgotten in the future. So, personally, you can interpret the ending in so many different fashions. You can interpret it as if Lain was a robot AI that eventually just disappeared. You can interpret it as if she's a god. Or you can interpret that she was some form of internet god that was an AI that became self-aware. There's many ways you can look at the series, and I don't feel like there's any correct way to really assume how you should really perceive the series. It's mainly up to the viewer to decide how it truly was to them. And I feel like that's what makes this series very enjoyable, why I'm actually very satisfied with the series. Even though I'm not usually comfortable with open endings or series that don't really answer everything, sometimes I do like sitting back and enjoying series that make you have to think about what really happened, or what's the true meaning in this area, or this point of the story. That's the type of series this is. And so I thoroughly enjoyed Serial Experiments Lain. I would definitely watch it again if I know what I know now. Very trippy journey. It was a very trippy journey that definitely left me confused at first, but after reassessing my thoughts, watching the final episode, or the final 2 episodes again, after I finished it, I slightly understand what was going on. Of course, I know I don't have everything, and I'm not even going to begin to say I understood everything from the series, because there's a lot of ambiguous ideas throughout the entire series. So yeah, I mean, if you never started this series, and you're looking for something that really makes you have to put your brain processors to work, where you're just processing so much information, trying to figure out what is going on, this series might be for you, if you're looking for something that makes you have to think. But if you don't like older animation and art, this series might annoy some of the watchers if you became quite used to the newer versions of art and animation. But if you can look past that, look into how anime originated from in the earlier parts of days in the 1990s and stuff like that, you might find a good hidden gem that you might add to your list. So, talking about one last point, the characters. The characters I feel like are the weakest area when it comes to Lain as a series. See, there is a lot of characters, and I think majority of the characters that are throughout the series are mainly there just to, I guess, showcase Lain's growth, for her importance to the series, and her presence, or her loneliness. And I feel like that was the main vital point of all the characters throughout the series. But at the end of the day, if you think about it, majority of the characters, from my perspective of watching, and my interpretation, they didn't have as much depth for development or characterization as I would have liked. And so I feel like the weakest point to the series would have to be the characters, besides our main cast, like Arisu and, Lain. Now, those 2 characters I think had the most development, but besides that, everybody else was kind of there just to build up the character development for those 2. So that's my thoughts. I mean, what would I rate the series of Lain? It was a very fun ride. I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did. I don't know, I'm really conflicted with what I could rate this series, because I know for a fact there's a lot more to this series than I even grasped from my first watch. I know I'd probably have to watch this series about probably 2 or 3 more times before I could really give a proper, fully adequate score to this series. But for now, which I will adjust in the near future, I will adjust this depending on my interpretation in the near future when I do finally sit down to rewatch this series again. But for now, I want to give this series an 8.50 out of 10. Until I figure out my other interpretation of the series. For now, that is my first, I guess, analysis or review on Serial Experiments Lain. Like I said, if you've yet to go watch it and you want to see it for yourself and you want to watch some form of old anime, you might like it. It's very psychological, cyberpunkish, and yeah. So you all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.